feels good to play Gitbox again. It's been over a year since I've had the opportunity to do that, so that was fun. I'm anticipating we'll probably see people struggling in here in the next 15 to 20 minutes, those who don't use their iPhones as their alarm clocks. So if people do sneak in, go ahead and let them. Actually, let's point and shame them. Just kidding. Welcome to Lent. Welcome to our Lenten sermon series, I Give Up. If you were wondering what the crosses were behind you or behind me, you're wondering what those icons stand for. For the next few weeks, we are going to be looking at this concept of relinquishing control, relinquishing power, giving up, letting go. And this is going to be our journey from now through till Easter. We have entered the season of Lent. It's the 40-day period that leads us to Good Friday and Easter Sunday. It's a traditional season of preparation and sacrifice. Typically, it's a somber and reflective time for people to recognize our shortcomings and examine those areas where we have potential to grow. It's a season where we as followers of Jesus take time to prepare our hearts, to look at the condition of our souls and our spirits, and to get ready to celebrate Easter. And this season is often marked by increased emphasis on prayer and self-denial. We focus on things like repenting of sin and giving of alms or helping out the poor. We give up something, typically in Lent, so that we can engage in another spiritual practice. So whatever you decide to fast, if you decide to engage in some Lenten practices, you may give up TV and the time that you would spend, watching the beloved Jets or whatever you would give up. You spend some time in prayer and scripture reading, or you spend time phoning up a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, or visiting somebody who could use a personal connection. We give up coffee for Lent. Crazy people do that, but give up coffee for Lent. And then the money that you save on the Starbucks or the Tim's or whatever you purchase, you then take that money and you do something good with it. You give to the poor, or you invest in something different. We slow down in Lent long enough to recognize the sin in our lives, recognize our need of a Savior, and we reflect on the cross and all that it has accomplished for us, and we purify ourselves in light of it. In light of this incredible gift, we pause to reflect. And for those who are familiar with the church calendar, Lent is sort of like Advent for Christmas, right? It's that season of preparation, of kind of getting our hearts ready to celebrate Easter. And so for those who've never been on that journey, you're like, I've never heard of this before. Welcome to Lent. Every once in a while, my Anglican roots show, and I find myself getting caught up in the beauty of the church calendar. For many evangelicals, the church calendar holds very little significance. Advent is just opening up little windows with chocolates behind them for some people, and it's not really that time of preparation leading up to Christmas. And Lent sometimes gets dumbed down to the point where we just we give up something. We want to shed our winter weight, so we give up sweets or we choose to lay off the potato chips. If we do anything at all, yeah, you got it. It's grown. So for those who are liturgic curious, we have a calendar available for download on the website. If you would like to engage in some Lenten practices, you'd like to have something to kind of keep you focused throughout the week, there's a psalm that you can meditate on each day, and then there's an activity or a practice, something that you can engage in. One of them is take a nap, so that's my favorite one. There's some that just say no radio in the car today while you're traveling, and things like that to help us to kind of shake up our normal routine. And if you want to grab one of those, if you're internet scares me, we have the cardboard ones or cardstock ones available on the info desk. This is one that I filled out a couple years ago, and so while I would meditate, I would also break out the coloring pencils and do the adult coloring thing and fill in the hexagon. And if you have YouVersion, if you pull up your psalm and you want to color, but you're also trying to read, but you're also trying to color, there's a little play icon. I don't know if you've discovered this yet in your YouVersion, but if you hit the play icon, the Bible, it'll read the audio version of the passage that you're looking in there. So the calendar is going to carry us for the 40 days right through till Easter on April 21st. And we're already 5 days into Lent. Don't feel bad if you've missed it. You were like, wait, there was Ash Wednesday and I missed it. we began this past Wednesday with Ash Wednesday, and we reminded ourselves, for those who attended Ash Wednesday, I went to St. Margaret's, an Anglican church in Wolseley on Ash Wednesday, and I got the ash on my marks, and then I went out to the shop to hang out with the guys, and they were like, "There's something on your forehead." I was like, "Yeah, it's Ash Wednesday." To begin the day and begin the season reminding us that we've been made from dust, and to dust we're going to return. It's a sobering time to be reminded of our mortality, to be reminded that this story is not our own, that there's something bigger going on. And I think every once in a while it's important for us to remember we're not God. I don't know how often you think you are, or you fall into the trap of thinking that your life is your own and that your story is your own, but you're not writing this story. You are participating in it, absolutely, and there are things that you can do to help shift and move and do things within your story, but you're not writing this story. You're participating in something far grander, something vastly more beautiful and significant than you could muster on your own. And in this world of making a name for ourselves and trying to be famous, or at least Instagram famous, trying to be YouTubers where you get 1 million followers on a website, it's good for us to take things down a notch and remember that we are not God. That sometimes we have to surrender. Sometimes we have to give up. And so this week we're going to talk about giving up control. I give up control. How many control freaks do we have in the room? Oh, good. There's a few of you who are honest enough. Let me go ahead and just reword that. How many of us are self-aware enough to recognize our control freak tendencies? Not every single one of us, but pretty close. Not many of us like the feeling of being out of control, do we? Would you rather be in the driver's seat or the passenger seat of a car? Depends if you want to nap. Depends who the driver is. When you're sliding out of control in a car, would you rather be in the driver's seat or the passenger seat? When you're cutting donuts in the parking lot, not at the church, but if you're cutting donuts in the parking lot, would you rather be in the passenger seat? My kids love cutting donuts in the church parking lot, by the by. But the truth is, we don't love the feeling of being out of control. We like it when it's controlled out of control. Like, we don't mind roller coasters because it's controlled out of control. We aren't in control, but somebody is, and we know that this thing's not going to go off the rails. But some of us, even that, we're like, no, tummy upset, not happening. But we don't love the feeling of being out of control, but I need to tell you something that may shock you. You are never in control. You never have control of your own life. You never have control of what's going on around you. We can try our best to create a world where we're safe and secure, where we can predict outcomes and end up with our, preferred future, but it's all an illusion. The idea of control is a complete illusion. Just ask someone who's recently buried a loved one. Ask someone who's been recently given a diagnosis of a terminal disease. You don't have control. It's an illusion. You think you do. We walk through life as though we do, as if this is what I'm going to do. You know what I'm going to do right after the service? We're going to have some friends over, and we're going to have chili. It's like, that's hopefully what's going to happen. But I don't get to control that. I don't get to control what the rest of this day looks like. I don't get to control my next breath. The idea of control is an illusion. So it may seem weird to give up something that we don't actually have, but we're going to give up the illusion of control. We're going to give up this idea that we somehow are writing our own story. So this morning, I want to give up control. Come with me to the book of James, chapter 4. It's near the back of your Bible if you have a paperback version here today. If you don't have a Bible, we have some available on the ledge in the sound booth. You're welcome to snag one of those on your way out. You don't have to grab it now if you don't want to. If digital is more your thing, download YouVersion. I've used YouVersion every day this year for my own personal devotional life and for setting up stuff for Sunday mornings. We have an event in there every week that will kind of lay out the whole morning service for you, as well as announcements and things that you may have missed. Opportunity to give, all of that is right in the YouVersion app under events. Those verses that we're going to look at this morning will be in that if you're following along in YouVersion. Otherwise, they'll show up on the screen behind me. But we're in James chapter 4, and we're looking at verses 13 to 17 this morning. James writes, "Now listen, You who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes, and such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. So far for now. This is the letter of James. It's one of my favorites in the New Testament because it's super practical. It's really forthright. You don't have to wonder at what is James getting at. There's not a lot of weird imagery. He's pretty straightforward in what he writes. He doesn't pull any punches. He kind of hits you hard right between the eyes. You kind of go like, oh, those of you who say you're going to do this, you're going to go to that city and you're going to stay there for a year and you're going to make money, what are you doing? You should say, if it's the Lord's will, that's what we're going to go do. But you don't control any of those things. These words were written by the half-brother of Jesus. He was a leader of the mother church in Jerusalem, sort of the first church where all of the other churches sprouted up from. Peter and Paul, the apostles, had gone out from that church in Jerusalem and were planting in different areas in the surrounding neighborhoods. And James was the one who was kind of commissioned to stay back in Jerusalem and to work with the church, with the Jewish converts that were there in Jerusalem, and to build up this home church in Jerusalem. And James, or Jacob, is actually probably more accurate. If you look at the Greek and the Hebrew, his name is Yakobos, which I think would be a great name for a kid. Or Yakov, smearing off some of you. Yaakov is the Hebrew version of it. But so James, or Jacob, is this half-brother of Jesus who's come to faith. He's now running the probably largest church in the known world at the time in Jerusalem. And he pastored this church for about 20 years before he was murdered. And James, all of this stuff is sort of like a collection of his messages. It's kind of the boiling down the essence of who this pastor was. And he was this peacemaker and pillar in Jerusalem. And so all of these phrases would have been things that people would have heard him say over and over and over again, like we're grace for everyone, community for everyone, church for everyone. The church had been through a bunch of persecution. It's what led to them scattering out and planting other churches. There had been a famine that they had gone through. They'd been having to look after widows and people who had gone through some really difficult things. This is a church that's, it's not like a mega church where everything's all shiny and bright and everything looks great. This is a church that's been birthed out of pain. It's been birthed out of suffering. And James knows what he's talking about when he starts encouraging believers in certain directions. His faith isn't some pie in the sky, well, wouldn't this be wonderful if it was true? It makes sense where the rubber hits the road for Jacob or James. But he likes to get in and kind of mess with the way we live. In this verse, he speaks about the danger that wealth brings with it. This idea of, and you maybe don't catch that right from the reading that we did, but he says, listen, you who say, well, we're going to go over there and we're going to make a bunch of money doing this, is how that's boiled down. Today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. The emphasis in that verse is make money. Wealth often lulls us in this false sense of security, and we begin to trust in it. We begin to think that it has the ability to sustain and save us. And so when we make these plans, we're like, okay, well, I'm going to invest in that. We're going to go do this, and we're going to go take care of all of these things, and we're going to make a ton of money. James isn't saying that planning for your future is wrong. He isn't saying that wisdom in finances is a terrible thing, or having a great business plan and a strategy is necessarily evil. He's getting at the motivation behind it. This idea that you make all of these wonderful plans, you're going to go make money, but you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what could happen on your way home from church today. To have those plans and to hang on to them tightly is a dangerous place to live, because what happens if those plans don't come to fruition? It's either God has failed or you have failed. Or somebody else has gone and ruined everything, which is sort of the direction many in the world take. See, this confidence that we have that it's going to be our will that gets done, that we are going to impose our will. The arrogance of humanity astounds me at times. That we think we can control everything, that we are going to change the world. We are going to make everything better. And you might be able to make some things better. You might be able to make a difference in the lives of people who are close to you. But the chances of you getting to hang out with Obama just because he was here at the MTS Center are probably pretty slim. The fact that Obama is going to make massive changes in the world, even somebody as powerful as the President of the United States, he's not promised tomorrow. This idea that we are going to do these things, that we are going to go and make money. That's what James is getting at. We're going to accomplish all of these great things. And he says, well, why? Do you even know what your life is? What is your life? You're a mist. You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. You are a mist. I want to get t-shirts made that say that. You're a mist. I'm often shocked by the same shameless self-promotion that is encouraged around us these days. We're encouraged to engage in it on a regular basis, where like everything has a filter. Everything has to be just curated just so. And we've got like our Instagram feed is perfect. And we have to like shape this idea of like the picture perfect life. And it's scary to me how much that's feeding into our social psyche, how much it's creating a world that doesn't exist. The Instagram world doesn't exist. This is real. What you're experiencing now is real. What is in here is not real. But we think that it is, and when we read into it and we look at it, we're like, oh, I wish that was my life. I wish that was my story. The amount of depression, the amount of anxiety that our young people are facing right now because they don't get enough likes or they don't get enough people reposting their stuff, it's staggering to me what we're doing to ourselves because we have this idea of like writing our own story and we're going to be the ones who are great. You are a mist. This is a really encouraging message this morning. I watched the Fire Festival documentary this last week. If you haven't seen it, it might be worth watching if you want to see what happens when the incredibly wealthy try to plan a festival on a remote island that goes horribly wrong. But it's what happens when we make and plan to do these amazing things, and we're like, people come in and say like, you want to bring how many people? There aren't enough bathrooms. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna do it. It's like, yeah, but there's no bathrooms. But we're gonna make it work. There's nowhere for people to sleep. Like we think that we're gonna change. We are going to move mountains to make it happen. And the night before the festival, a massive storm comes and washes everything away. See, we make these plans to do these amazing things, and everything is out of our control. It's not that the plans are wrong, it's the trusting in those plans. It's the thinking that my will is going to be done. I'm going to impose my will on the world around me. And wealth often deludes us into thinking that that's possible. If you throw enough money at it, you're going to be able to make changes. Well, the poor don't have that. The poor don't have a safety net. They have to live with the constant reminder that things could come crashing down at any minute, that they are just on the brink of homelessness, or maybe some of them already are, that they don't know where their next meal is coming from, that they are fully aware that they are completely out of control in their lives. It's probably easier to recognize that you're missed if you don't have a full bank account. And it's sobering to realize that one day that bank account, as full as it's going to be, is going to get passed on to somebody else or the government. Like, we amass all of this stuff and these things, and we forget that we're missed. One day it's all going to vanish. Instead of saying, I'm going to do this or I'm going to impose my will, we should say, let the Lord's will be done. If it's His will, we're going to go and live over there, and we're going to do this or that. Not my will, but yours be done. To do the good that you know to do. I love the end of that phrase. It says, anybody who knows the good that they should do and doesn't do it, well, then that's sin. That's a great definition of sin. If you know that there's a right thing to do and you don't do it, well, then you've missed the mark. That's what sin is. So I give up. I give up this idea of control. The desire for control is actually, in my life anyway, it's very thinly veiled worry. The desire for control is the way that I manage my anxiety. It's the way that I manage my concern or my worry about the way things are going to play out. See, we fear, and at least I do, that if I let go it's not going to work out the way that I want it to. If I just kind of take my hands off of it, it could go anywhere. It could do anything. And I don't know about you, but I want to set myself up for success. I don't want to let it steer down the wrong path. And so we try to control things. And I run all the possible scenarios through my mind and lose sleep and burn bridges with friends, all in the pursuit of seeing my will accomplished. But what if we gave up control? What if we said okay, well, if it's God's will, this is the direction I sense, this is where I feel like we should be going. If it's God's will, that's where we're going to go. But not my will, but yours be done. See, giving up control has the added benefit of giving up some of your worry and anxiety. If you recognize that you can't control it, there's no point in worrying about it. I love Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount. He's so brilliant in the way he puts these passages together. He speaks quite a bit about worry in the Sermon on the Mount. And in chapter 6 of Matthew, he says this. He's teaching to a bunch of people. It's called the Sermon on the Mount because he was standing on the mount and giving a sermon. And there were people who were gathered around listening to these words. He's talking about the kingdom of heaven. He's talking about this new way of life. And so in verse 25, he says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" Oh, how much I would love to add a single hour to my life after last night. But worrying's not going to do it. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They don't labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, "What shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear?" For the pagans run after these things. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You can't control your circumstances. You can control how you respond to those circumstances. You can control whether or not you get worked up and anxious and worried. You can't control the circumstances. What if we took those last two verses to heart? That we seek first his kingdom, his righteousness. That all those things will take care of themselves. That if we don't need to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow is going to take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Seek first his kingdom. His will, not ours, be done. Jesus, let your will be done. Your will be done breaks the cycle of worry, at least in my life. When I start getting kind of worked up about a situation and I'm not sure of a way forward, just to say, Lord, let your will be done. You accomplish your purposes in this situation. Give me wisdom. I need to know the next step forward, but I'm not going to try and make my own way. Your will be done. When we release that grip that we have on control of our lives, and we say, your will be done. I don't want to be the Lord of my life. I make a mess of things when I do that. I want him to be the Lord of my life. I want to look more like Jesus because I follow him, not because I've managed to somehow take control of my life. Not my will, but yours be done. This should be the constant refrain of a follower of Jesus. There's a theory in social psychology that suggests that our wills and our willpower require energy to be able to work. And so it's a theory that's still, there's some people kind of poking some holes in it, but basically you've probably experienced times where your willpower is not as strong as at other times. Like if I started talking right now about chocolate chip cookies and how amazing it would be to have chocolate chip cookies in this very moment. Some of you are thinking, on the way home, I'm going to stop by and I'm going to pick up some chocolate chip cookies, or you're going to bake some when you get home. And your willpower is slowly being worn down by the more often I say the word chocolate chip cookies. Now, if I were to walk in with a plate of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, and you could smell that smell. Your willpower would go down even farther. Your ability to withstand and withhold would be so much more diminished. It's why things like interviews and first dates are exhausting for us, because we've got this in our minds, we're like, we are presenting the perfect image of what we want to present in this moment. And we're going to keep all of those flaws and all of those things that would make us weird underneath the surface. And so our willpower requires energy, but there's one thing that your will can do over and over and over again without using any energy. It actually tends to give you energy more. And that thing is surrender. If you give up, if you let go, when you let go, when you let go and give in to chocolate chip cookies, you end up eating all the chocolate chip cookies. But when you surrender, that will, that control, it can be refreshing. It can be empowering. If you went through your day and said, your will be done, when you find yourself being anxious, to be able to say, your will be done, to just put your palms up and say, I don't know the way forward, but your will be done. It removes the weight of carrying it all on your own. It reminds you that, oh yeah, God's in this story too. It's not all about me. It's not all about me accomplishing everything. So if you're wondering how to give up control, that's probably a great place to start. Palms up, your will be done. Your will be done, not mine. If you're not sure what to do through the Lenten season, what it means to surrender and to prepare your heart, your will be done. Ask yourself, what's something that's good in my life that I need to do? What is something that's right? What do I know to do that is right? And then go do that. What's the thing that's in front of you that you're like, I'm not too sure what to do? Well, what's the right thing to do? Go do that. Do the next right thing that you know to do. Don't worry about alleviating all of your anxiety. Don't worry about alleviating all of the control in your life, because you won't be able to do it. John Ortberg uses the phrase, don't try and boil the ocean. Start small. Don't try and boil the ocean. Just do the next thing that's in front of you. What's the right thing you could do in that moment? Discipleship is really not as complicated as we sometimes make it. Following Jesus is doing the next right thing that's in front of you. How is God leading you? Sometimes you know, sometimes you hear very clearly. But if you see that Jesus loved people and somebody comes across your path and you're like, I should probably love them. What does it look like to love them? Do the next right thing that's in front of you. Salvation is living what Jesus taught. It's walking out his teaching. It's doing the thing that's in front of you. He will lead you. He will direct your path. And if you begin with those words, not my will, but yours be done, I guarantee he will help you give up control. If you've never made a decision to follow Jesus, if you've never, given any thought to that, maybe you're exploring what it means to be a follower of Jesus, can I encourage you that the disciples were in the exact same boat when they heard these words. They knew this guy had something special. They knew that there was some teaching of his that was maybe a little bit different than what they were hearing before, and they were intrigued. But the disciples started following Jesus long before they understood that he was the Son of God. The disciples started watching him and doing what he did long before they ever made the declaration that you are the Holy One, the one who was sent for us. It wasn't theology that they figured out first. It was relationship. They walked with Jesus. And I think that's the invitation for disciples today. It's not about, do you believe in the virgin birth and the resurrection of the dead, and do you believe that one day he's coming again to judge? Those things are important to figure out for yourself, but they're not the starting point. Start with, what's Jesus asking you to do right now? What's his invitation in your life? Is it to phone up that person that you've got difficulty with and try and patch things up? We'll do that. Maybe that's Jesus leading you. Maybe he just invites you to come and hang out. Maybe he just invites you to come and, hey, walk with me a little while. Let's see where this goes. Discipleship is followership. It's not theology. It's not about checking off all of the right boxes. It's about who you're becoming, not necessarily all that you're believing. So when I think of this season of Lent, when I think of what it means for me to be a disciple, it means that I say over and over again, not my will, but yours be done. I surrender control. I give up. We used to sing the hymn, all to Jesus, I to surrender. All to him I freely give. that would be the attitude of our hearts throughout this Lenten season and every day of our life, that we recognize that we don't control anything. You don't get to choose what happens tomorrow. You can choose how you react to it. You can make your plans. But things can change with a significant phone call. Things can change with something that would happen in your life that you had no idea that you could prepare for. This past week, within our own congregation, we had the birth of a beautiful baby girl and the death of a mom. Those weeks looked very different, and there was no control over either one of those two events. There was no yep, the baby is coming this day. Well, baby showed up when the baby showed up. There was no, okay, well, mom isn't doing all that well. I don't know what it's going to look like. We don't control those things. So when we have this illusion that we are going to impose our will and we're going to make things happen, we put ourselves in the position that God alone owns. He is sovereign. You are not. He knows the story. We don't. We see but through a glass darkly. So when we come to him and we say, not my will, but yours be done, help me to walk in a way that honors you in life and in death, in grief and in joy. Help me to be somebody who responds to the significant things in my life in a way that honors and worships this King who has come for me. So we begin, I give up, with control. We are not in control, and we surrender ourselves to the one who is. Let's pray. Lord, I know that I'm often tempted to trust in my own strength, to trust in my own safety nets that I've created. I have been tempted to trust in my own gifting and ability to move through life. And I recognize over and over again where that falls short, where it doesn't get to the places that it needs to get to, where my heart doesn't connect with what is going on with your kingdom in ways that are significant enough. And it's because I've wrestled control away from you. It's because I've played it safe sometimes. It's because I've decided to go the easy way instead of the way that you would maybe call. And I just confess that I want to give up control this morning. I don't want to miss out on what your kingdom is doing right now. I don't want to miss out on how your Spirit is moving even in this room and beyond the doors of this church. I want to surrender to your will, not my will, but yours be done. So Lord, would you help us as we go through this season, preparing our hearts for Easter, to recognize that we are called to something greater than just existence. We are called to something greater than just walking through life day to day. We are called to partner with you to see the kingdom come. We're called to partner with you to bring hope to the hopeless, light into darkness, to set free the captives and to bind up the brokenhearted. We've been called to be a part of what you want to do on this earth. So where we get mixed up and trying to make a name for ourselves, when we get mixed up and looking after our own things and missing out on what's going on with your kingdom, I pray that you'd snap us to attention, help us to recognize, help us to see what you want to do or what you could do in and through us if we would just give up control. If we would just let you lead, let you be Lord, let you be the one who speaks to our hearts and then we obey. We want to be people who do that next good thing that's in front of us, that we would follow in the footsteps that you've placed out for us, that we would see you move in us and through us because we've given up control. So Lord, help us. Help us this week to walk through life palms up. Not my will, but yours be done. To walk through life open to the possibility that the kingdom would want to break in through us on a Tuesday afternoon or Saturday morning over brunch. You would want to speak to us and through us because you are Lord, and we surrender to you. We give up this morning, God. We give up the illusion of control. We've got a little bit of time here. The worship team is going to lead us in a song, and so I'm just going to open up the front, the altar here, if you want to spend some time in prayer. If there's some stuff that you have been wrestling with or something that you just feel like, I need to let this thing go and I need to lay it at God's feet, that you would take some time to do that. We're just going to turn this into a place of prayer, a time for you to respond and allow God to speak to your heart and move and connect with you. If you do have to pick up your kids, you can sneak out and do that. We'd like to keep this place kind of quiet, so if we can keep the kids running around out in the foyer, that would be great. But be thinking this week about what it means to have him as Lord, not just Savior. What it means for him to have his will imposed on you or lived out in you, not just your will being done. What it looks like for you to give up control. And wrestle with that a little bit as we spend some time in worship. Next week, we will be talking about giving up certainty. The idea that we can know everything and we can have God all figured out. And so we're going to be looking at that next week. So if you have friends who have doubts, it's going to be a good message for them. So if you're going to stay and wrestle with some things, may God speak to your heart. May God open you up, that his Spirit would stir and accomplish what only his Spirit can do and accomplish. May you meet with God in these moments, these sacred moments. And if you need to leave, may the peace of the Lord Christ go with you, wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness and protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again to our Lord.